awake and we know this is what we're meant to do. So we wake up, put our feet on the floor, go and conquer the day like a warrior, like warriors. Cause that's what a tribe does. We got your back so you can relax and focus on all the important stuff, like getting your business done. This is our tribe. We look out for each other. That's right, that's right. This is our tribe. We help each other grow in business and life. That's right, that's right. No need to panic anymore. We got lots of support and an army of warriors by our side. We fight the good fight when we unite. We fight the good fight when we unite. Cause that's what a tribe does. We got your back so you can relax and focus on all the important stuff, like getting your business done. This is our tribe. We look out for each other. That's right, that's right. This is our tribe. We help each other grow in business.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sondra Ray, and I am the host of Explore Pro Tech Coffee Shop Show, where we talk about all things small business, entrepreneurship, and everything else. Let me stop sharing screens. So we've been talking about business plans, and then we started talking about SOPs last week. And this week, we're going to continue building on top of the shows. If you have not noticed, we are building them for a reason. So this week, we are talking about systems. You can systematize pretty much anything and everything in today's world, but doesn't mean you should. So systems have a good place. Systems can be used productively, but systems need to be reviewed. Systems need to work for you, not against you. Make your work easier, not harder. And I've seen all those pitfalls when it comes to systems. So I am truly, truly honored to announce today's guest expert. Gareth and his partner own Stitches, and they have helped me build a lot of my systems. We've been working together for about 1.5 years now. So when I picked this topic, I knew that he was one of the best people to talk about systems, because he'll be like, yes, no, don't do that. Why are you doing that? And all the things. So definitely, Gareth, how are you today?
Hi, Sondra. Thank you for the introduction. I'm good. Yeah, great. And yourself?
I am good. All right. Well, talk to us a little bit about systems to kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, to just go off what you were saying, a lot of the time people like to overcomplicate systems, right? It does feel like there's like this standard you need to meet when it comes to your company systems, and that you're somehow not correct if you don't have those systems in place. But a lot of the time, it's unnecessary fluff that just makes working a bit more difficult. So, just as a general rule, when it comes to systems, what I like to do is if it's not servicing you and you don't need it, it's not solving a problem, then it shouldn't be part of the system, right? I like keep it clean, keep it lightweight. Yeah, it's my general idea on systems. Yeah.
So again, I know everybody is unique and they need to service them. But in general, starting out, what would you say would be your best type of system to start out with? Maybe the first one or two systems, because everybody needs some system of some sort usually to start out with. So how do they figure out what the heck they should pick? Like you said, there's a million different kinds and things.
Sure. I think, well, to start at the beginning, what I would do if you're looking at establishing a system is first to identify the areas of your company that are bogging you down, right? What's holding you down? What's taking up most of the time and can it be automated? And if it can be automated, or at least neatened, then you do that. So a lot of the time that's going to come, for a lot of companies, it's going to become finding customers, right? How do you find customers? Because if you're one person, you can only talk to one person at a time, right? And that's at the very base level of talking to one person at a time. And how do you increase how many people you can talk to at a time? And so you'd look at things like social media, or marketing in general, that allows you to talk to multiple people at the same time. It really depends on where you're struggling, but just as an example, that's where a lot of people would want to start saving time is in lead generation, and just making sure that that's pretty clean. And from there, obviously, it would build. So yeah, I would say as a neat system is make sure that your internal administration works correctly, right? I like to keep it clean on just Google Sheets. There's a lot of automation stuff that you can do on Google Sheets, but you don't need that. You just need to make sure it's written down, have a process, and make sure that everyone that works with you understands the process and works with it cleanly. If it's not servicing people and they have troubles with it, obviously that's a really good time to have a conversation with them and maybe optimize, let's say, Google Sheets in this instance. But yeah, so start off with Google Sheets, make sure your internal admin is working, and then from there you'd move out to how to automate external processes in order to just save up some time so you can focus more on building the company rather than running it. Yeah.
I love that. I love that, Gareth. So we did talk about processes last week, and one of the things is, yes, you need a process on how you do things, but you also need to know your process so you know which system to pick or what system you need to pick or where is your problem area. And then who needs to see the system and who needs to see the process and so on and so forth. So definitely ties into SOPs from last week because your system should be part of your SOP. But I did it that way because if you don't have a process, it's really hard to figure out what system you need. So if your process doesn't include X, Y, and Z, well, don't get a system that has X, Y, and Z, or that's their main thing or whatever. So your process is, I think, is important first because then you know what kind of system you need or the tools inside of a system because there's a lot of systems that are almost all in one. I've yet to find a fully 1,000% all in one, but there are a lot that are pretty close to that nowadays. So knowing what you need is extremely important. So would there be a distinct difference between systems and SOPs? Yes, SOP is the process of how to do things. System is a tool you would use in doing things. So process on how to do it. System is how the thing you would use to do it. So that's the difference. And thank you, Mr. L, for reminding me that was something I was going to explain. Go ahead, Gareth.
Yeah, I would say just to answer that question, such as if an SOP is a recipe, then a system is the kitchen, right? That's a fully equipped kitchen that you with the tools to build the recipe, I guess you would say. So yeah, that's a good way to say it, Sondra. Yeah, I would say that there really isn't a one-size-fits-all solution if you're looking at off-the-shelf solutions for systems. But a lot of people like to have, a CRM for sales automation, email marketing automation, appointment scheduling, accounting software, invoicing software. Not all of those are necessary. I'd say if it's servicing you, then definitely go for it. But if it's not servicing you, then don't. Generally, it saves you a lot of time, and that's the biggest resource that you want when you're building a system is to save time. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Saving time, helping you look professional in your business because you're going to put your language, you're going to put most systems are geared towards that. CRM is a customer relationship management system. We always have to want to make sure we explain acronyms, but basically it's how you're servicing your customer, how you're getting your customer, how you're servicing your customer, how you're tracking your customers, potential customers or current customers from start to finish. So, and CRMs Again, there's tons of them. You definitely need to know what you want it to do, besides service your customer, because that's pretty vague. But what is your process in serving your customer? Uh, Peter, come on in. Oh my goodness.
First of all, Gareth, it's good to have you here. It's nice to have some wisdom in the room, which is great. Um, I think when we build out our spaces as entrepreneurs, we tend to throw everything in the kitchen sink at a problem in order to solve it. And we tend to complicate our spaces, and we complicate it for ourselves. And we complicate it in order to build it. But once it's built, we can reverse engineer it and figure out, well, what do we need to keep? What do we need to throw away? What can we automate? What can we streamline? And you go through this process of, how do I now make my life a whole lot easier? How do I function at a higher level? How do I, building it complicates it, but once it's built, you can simplify it. So, and I think that's just like a general, that's how things function. That's how they work. We complicate it first, and then we streamline it and make it easier. But we can't streamline it unless it's complicated first, and we can't build it without complicating it. So I know that sounds a little bit, but that's generally of everything I've ever built. I have overcomplicated the living poop out of a space in order to get it to function. But once it's functioning, we can then streamline, and we can figure out, how do we make our lives a whole lot easier. And I think it works pretty much the same for everyone. We complicate something to make it work, and then we have the ability to make our lives a lot easier. And then when we go through that process of, okay, it's complicated, now we get to simplify, and we want to put systems in place. In order to put systems in place, we need to understand our SOPs. We need to understand our processes. We need to, so going through that, what I call it, exercise, or going through that homework, gives you a much better understanding of your space, a much better understanding, and also creates an understanding of the people around you, of how your space works, what you want them to do, how they need to do it, what works for you, what doesn't work. And just going through that exercise in order to build the systems or put the systems in place, I think you'd be very surprised as to how much you can actually simplify something and how much more efficient it can work. And I think that gap is something that a lot of entrepreneurs don't want to take that step. They're like, it's complicated and it works, and I need to work really hard while it's so complicated, and they just keep driving. But there's always a much simpler solution. There's always a much simpler way. Sometimes there's a way more efficient way of doing something. 9 times out of 10, as the person that's built the complicated space, you're not going to see it. You are not going to see it. I've built spaces that are so complicated, and I'm like, oh my goodness me, this is how it needs to function. This is a lot of work. And then somebody like Sondra comes along, or Gareth comes along and goes, why are you doing that way? Like, we could just do this. So I think those conversations are conversations that need to be had. They're very important, because we can make our lives a lot easier.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Peter. And yes, it's really hard when you're in it. You need really that outside perspective of somebody that knows where you're going and what you want the outcome to be. I think that's another reason for systems. You want to know what your outcome for using the system is. Is it saving me time? Is it making it easier for, I don't know, my virtual assistant to help me? Is it making it easier for my customers to get what they need? What is the outcome you want from the system? Because, people told me from the get-go, buy a CRM, but like Gareth said, you can use a Google Sheet and a Google document temporarily as you get started and track the people. Same thing with task management and projects. You can go buy the $1,000 a month project manager, blah, blah, blah. You can also use Google or Word and get things done. Is it going to be more time consuming? Yes. To start with, will you have to do that? Probably, until you can invest X amount of money into that type of a system. So definitely tracking your time when you're doing your processes is also very telling for people because money is time, time is money. Can't get out of it. Don't care what industry you're in. You just can't get out because they used to say, nope, time is money, money is time. So if you know how long you're spending on your process, the complicated way you're doing it, then you can be like, oh, it's going to save me X amount of time. Oh, wait a minute, I'll get back $100 of my day or 5 hours of my day because I invested X amount of money. Then it makes sense versus somebody coming in, a Gareth or me or whatever, and going, you need this. Okay, well, why do I need this? Because it's going to save you X amount of time. That makes sense. You got to make it make sense. I had a client, bless him, he had a CRM, and the only reason he had it was because he wanted to put his coaching notes in there, was using nothing else in the whole system. I'm like, how much is it? Like $250 a month. And I'm like, you can put notes on a Google Docs. Like, please tell me why. Well, so-and-so told me so. Bless him, we got rid of that one very quickly. And I'm like, let's look for something that makes a lot more sense. Again, you don't know until you know because somebody told you so in your industry that you need this best flashy blah, blah, blah. Doesn't necessarily mean that's going to fit your processes. So that's kind of the important of knowing your processes because you don't do the same thing as this coach or as this marketing director or as this fitness coach. They're similar, but they're not the same. So you might not need that system because it might not work for your process. So knowing your processes is extremely important. So you know what kind of system you need and why, W-H, why do you need the system? I think is the biggest thing. Why do you need it? And then thirdly, review. Systems, tech in this world goes 90,000 miles an hour. Systems change, good and bad. Sometimes they take away things that were free or in that package, or they've expanded. So if you review the system, or your price went up and you didn't notice because it's an automated payment or whatever. So that's part of the quarterly review when I do quarterly reviews. Is checking your systems because again, why do you have it? Is it still working for you? Does it need to be optimized? Does it need to be gotten rid of because it doesn't fit anymore, or you found something better, is another reason to be reviewing your systems. And I know people that pay, yearly or every 6 months and they don't touch it until it's up for renewal. And then they're like, wait, I don't want to pay $1,500 for this system anymore. And I'm like, well, yeah, because we've been using so it's really important to do all those things. Gareth, come on in. You got to unmute.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'd say that's very important. Understanding your SOPs really is the starting point of building your systems. And to go back to what Peter was saying about, you got to complicate it to make it simple. And really the only way to avoid that is to not start this process of building systems until you encounter a problem, because it's a very stressful process to try and bring in new systems that you're unfamiliar with, your teammates might be unfamiliar with, and if there isn't a problem, you don't need to build a system around it, right? You don't need to build a complicated system in order to save time if no one actually needs that time to be saved, for example. It really becomes, I would say that the most important time to build a system is when it becomes a necessity, right? Is you have your system, you have your operations running smoothly, right? They're running smoothly, and then you can look at when should you decide to build a system. Does it need to be optimized if everything's running smoothly? If it's working the way it is, why do you need to add a system to it, or a system process like a CRM, right? Instead of a Google Sheet, if it's not needed. But if everything's running smoothly and you see an opportunity to take a look at your company and find spaces for optimization, then communicating with your teammates and obviously doing your own research on things like, let's say, I'm going to stick with CRMs for now because it's a very, very popular one that I think most companies try and implement unnecessarily. That's one of the biggest ones. If it is valuable to get a CRM, then only get a CRM. Don't implement it because it's what everyone else is doing, and it's what makes sense because what's the next step, right? Yeah, you don't need it at that point. So yeah, I'd say as it arises, as an issue arises in the company, you need more time, you need more customers, then you can look at how to save more time to get more customers, to manage your customers more effectively, instead of implementing it all at the front end and then struggling with these big systems that you built that take up most of the time of your work, instead of working on delivering to clients. Yeah.
I love that. I love that, Gareth. And there's a time and place where you hire the experts, aka the Gareths, to go do it for you because time is money and money is time. He's going to do it in half the time. Okay, he's going to do it in like a quarter of the time. The little me does it, and it's been proven more than once. I'm like, okay, Gareth, just go do it, please. Just invoice me and let's move on. But yeah, if you're struggling to put a system together, you're struggling to set the system up, tap into and maybe it doesn't have to be an expert. Maybe it has to be their tutorial or their YouTube channel or whatever. Don't struggle with the system, and stay struggling and have that eat up your time. There's lots and lots of tools out there nowadays to help with systems, how to run them, to build them. Even newer systems usually have some type of tutorial or whatever, or find the Gareths or, the people that run those for sure. For sure. So go ahead.
Defining the outcome would probably help you identify what system you need to put in place. I think that's probably a big step that you should consider when you're trying to build a system is what outcome do you want? And if that outcome matches the system you're trying to implement, then it's probably a good system to implement. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Good evening, Mr. L. How are you? Oh, sorry.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. No, I have unmuted. Good evening, Sondra. Good to see you, Brian and Gareth here. And Marlon, we know you're training. So from what has been said, I think I want to come up with, I don't know if you call it an acronym or whatever you call it, but it's a triple WH, which is why would you want a system? The second W would be, when do you need it? The third W would be, which system do you need? And the H for me would be standing for, how are you going to apply the system that you have come up with or that anybody has helped you with? And for me, that is the basis of you developing a system that is going to make your business or to get your business to be successful. Because for you to develop a system, you need to know your strategy. Where do you want to take this company to? So your mission, your vision, and all that will come into play. So you need to know why you want that. And I think Gareth, you mentioned that. Why do you need a system? Because if you don't need a system, you don't need it. What is the point of just having a system that's there that you're not using? Okay. And I think was it you, Peter, or Gareth, or Sondra that mentioned, when do you, no, I think it was Gareth, when do you now come up with a system? When do you bring it into play? And then you've spoken about various systems that are there. So which one are you going to use? Are you going to use the cheapest, the easiest, or the simplest? Are you going to use a combination? And depending on the type of business that you run, you will know, or your expert in these systems would know which one you can use. And then how do you do it? How do you apply it? So for me, that is the basis of coming up with a system for your business. Thank you. That's Lesetja Mokou from Litmok, your business development agents.
I love that. I love that, Mr. L. Um, very, very true. If you don't know how the system works or what you want it to do, then it's really hard to pick. There are tons and tons of research out there comparing systems all the time. I've used it. I'd be like, compare this system to this system. I always look to see who wrote the article, because if it's the company that I'm looking at, then I'm like, yeah, I'll take that with a grain of salt. But there's also a lot of outside business or a lot of outside research. And then I'll look at like the pros and cons, and like maybe the pro is the thing that my client needs or I need. And maybe the con is like, oh, it doesn't work that way. So wait a minute, we'll stay away from that. So a lot of legwork can be done for you already so that you don't have to do that. Use what's out there for sure, 100%. And then people like me who do process and system audits, we can also help you with that and be like, okay, this doesn't match this process. Like, how can we realign this to make sure it matches what you need, what needs to be done? Or the Gareths of the world who you'd be like, okay, I wanted to do this. Well, what? Tell me which one. So definitely use your resources. AKA our tribe uses our resources. We know who to go where. Marlon's going to help me with marketing. Brian's going to help me get my butt in shape. We have experts in the tribe, and that's one of the gazillion million reasons I love the tribe. Is I know I can go, or if I don't know who to go to, I'll be like, Peter, who do I go talk to about this? And he'll be like, oh yeah, da, 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 da. Go talk to him. I'm like, cool, we're good. So, getting yourself in a community that has those resources is a great way to help you build your systems. And I know that's kind of a weird way, but it really isn't, because when you know you have your resources in your community, it makes a lot less legwork for you in the short term. So, Mr. Peter, come on in.
So I think we all know that as entrepreneurs and business professionals that we work hard. We work hard to build. We build with purpose. We build for a reason. We don't just go, let's spend the rest of our lives working really hard to build stuff, unless we have a particular purpose for building what we're building. That being said, we complicate our spaces and we work really hard. And am I a systems guy? No, not at all. I don't even write things down. I'm absolutely terrible. But the one thing I do believe in is speak to the right person that has the right information. Speak to the right person that has the right skills. So my first port of call as somebody that would be much like everybody else, I've built a space and now I need it to function, and now I need it to function a whole lot better than what I've built it. I've had the ability to build it, but I might not have the skills to streamline it. I might not have the understanding of what can be automated. I don't know the latest of what can be automated and what can't. And I think for the general person out there that's building a space, they also don't know what can be automated and what can't. And they also don't know what's new on the market and so as somebody that has the ability to build a space, but at the same time also has the ability to speak to the right people that have the right answers, I'm quite capable of going to Gareth and going, hey, listen, I'm really working my behind off, and in this space, I want to know, like, what can I actually do? What could I put in place? And somebody like Gareth would be like, okay, well, what are your processes? Let's talk through your processes. Let's talk through your SOPs. Let's talk about what your outcome needs to be. And then somebody that has more of an understanding of systems and automation can then go, well, actually, why don't we skip this step? Why don't we keep this step? That's not necessary. This is highly necessary. And let's build a system around that and streamline that. So I'm a firm believer in speak to the right people. If you don't have the ability to build your systems, I mean, we were even looking at the last time we spoke about SOPs. A lot of people don't understand that in order to create their SOPs, they're like, what do I do? What do I write? What do I put in place? How do I put this all down on paper. And not all of us know how. We need to reach out to the person that's going to go ask the right questions and lead us to the right conclusions so that we can actually then build it out. Do I have all the answers? No. But is there somebody else out there that does? Yes. And I think that's the saving grace, where you can line yourself up with people in different areas of your business and literally piece by piece pick it apart and put it back together in a way that it functions and it works and it's easier. So am I going to, as an entrepreneur, now sit down and rebuild all my systems? No, I'm not. I'm going to call Gareth. I'm sorry, Gareth, it's on you. Am I going to, I need to now build out a website. Am I going to go build that website? No, I'm not. Once again, I'm going to go to Gareth. I want to have my site look a very particular way or have a very particular outcome. Am I going to do that? No, once again, I'm not doing it myself. It's all about relationships and knowing the right people. If I want to figure out in my space, is everything required or necessary, or or do I have a team that need to be held accountable? Am I going to do that? Some of it. All of it? Hell no. I'm calling Sondra. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So I think that the crux of the conversation is finding somebody to talk to that understands automation and systems better than you understand it yourself, so that you can have that conversation to figure out what can you, I mean, even if you end up doing it yourself, it's about empowering your mind, understanding what's out there. It's about having a conversation. 9 times out of 10, you're going to figure out, can you do it yourself? Maybe. Do you want to do it yourself? Goodness me, no, please. There is a lot involved. So my recommendation would be that if you're looking to put systems in place, have a conversation with the right person and figure out why you want to have that system. What do you need it to achieve? Is it going to make your life easier? Could you simplify it a whole lot? Could you use something that's free? Do you have to have a complicated system, or do you have a complicated space and you need a complicated system that's going to function? These are questions that you need answered, but don't try and answer it yourself, because your knowledge on your space is based on how complicated you built it. So you're just going to give yourself the same answers and end up with exactly the same system. So speak to somebody that understands automation. That's number one. And understand systems. Have those conversations. You'd be surprised as to how much easier your life can become when somebody else is doing it.
For sure, Peter. And like you said, knowing your resources and knowing who does what is extremely important. And I've learned to say yes to a lot more things because I know I have resources to back me up. Like I did it today. I was like, well, I don't do all those things, but I can say yes because I know I have X people that can do that. So sure, we can possibly work together and I can possibly do all those things. Are all those my expertise? Heck no. Do I have enough people in my corner to make it happen? Yes, because I've proven it. I've done it a couple of times now. So I feel confident in that. Brian, I am sure you have systems on top of systems. How are you today, sir? Oh, unmute.
Sorry. Perfect. Yeah, I guess, where I'm coming from in the conversation now is probably from the user side of things. Yes, I agree that like a lot of the systems that we end up using come from something we were doing in the beginning that was just organic, and you notice that you're repeating a task over and over again, and like there's got to be a way to make this more optimal. When we think of systems too, I think now in the modern space of business and online, we often think a right away to some sort of tech of some kind. I guess my question with the group here as well is I found that I've done well. I'm a really good with the spreadsheet. I have so many apps on my phone that people told me to download that I don't use. Actually, they make it more complicated for me, actually. And if it's there and everything's on my phone and it's out of sight, out of mind, I don't run it. I don't run the system. That's just the way I am. Like, I mean, knowing the way you operate as a human, right? Does anyone here in the group have both a system that is maybe a tech-related tool, but also still the old-fashioned, like just manually something up on the wall that you engage with? Because I found that something like our calendar, we have a giant 4-month wall calendar that we engage with every single day. We have sheets on the wall that break up the quarters, and we write stuff in and report stuff in there, so it's still up in our face. Because I found that it's been very helpful for me. And maybe it's just the way I operate, my personality or whatever, that it helps to also have something I'm actually touching every day. So my wall we have a vision board, we have a vision wall, and we're sticking things to it and stuff like that. So as far as like a visionary, something that helps in the visionary space, as well as something that's in the organizational, data-driven, a lot of the technology stuff is really good for accumulating the data and the key indicators and the metrics we need, right? But also, are you guys still doing anything manually? And does it work?
So for my visual people, a couple of things. One, if you want the physical, they do make devices you can attach to boards and it'll transcribe it into a system. So there are those devices. I know there's devices you can scan on your phone and it'll put in X folder or whatever. So there's definitely things you can translate into digital from physical. But I do know people that physical planner is what they have to do. If you're using it, it's a system. A system doesn't have to be tech. System is a system, as in you use it on a daily. Like you said, you use a calendar on a daily, on your wall. Some call them command centers. Like that's where everybody knows where to go for the family and all those things, especially when you have multiple kids and multiple things going on. So those are just as important as tech and digital. I know my family, and I know there's family systems like Cozy, and I even do my Google Calendar with the family, and they put, if you don't put it on the calendar, it ain't happening. So it's pretty much, but I have older kids, so adult kids, and so that works really well. So there's definitely different ways. If it ain't broke, why are you trying to fix it? That's kind of my thing. If it's working for you and you're getting the outcome you want, Brian, don't worry about the newest tech, for sure. But I'd love to hear Gareth's opinion because we don't always agree on that. No, go ahead, Gareth.
Yeah, no, I actually agree on this in this sense of, if it's what's working for you, then if you don't mind saying, Brian, what is the problem that you're facing with the system, right? Because the question's coming from a place of what can you do better, right? So what's the problem that you're facing with the system? And then I think that's probably the best way to identify how you can make it better. But from what you said so far, I think that a lot of people have that problem of downloading a bunch of apps that they think will work. Sondra and I went through this as well with an app, Millernote, which it is a really amazing app, but a lot of the time it depends on how well each person uses it. Do they use the system, right? And if they don't, then it's just not worth it. Rather go back to something, like you said, a bit less digital, a bit low tech, like an Excel sheet. People underestimate the value and power of just using a spreadsheet. You have all your data there. Yes, it's a bit more manual, and you can automate things through sheets, but you don't have to. It's just very easy for everyone to just jump onto the same document and work with it. Or like in your case, Brian, on an actual physical board where you're putting your ideas onto a board. And for strategy sessions and things like that, I think that's the best way to do it, right? Is everyone's engaged with something that's a bit more physical, a bit easier to see and enjoy. But Brian, please, is there a problem with the system, or is it just like a comment that you're making?
A bit of like, I mean, I would say there's two main things that I've had challenges with in my businesses. One is when you're doing a lot of outreach and you're generating a lot of names, you're making a lot of contacts, that can fill up really fast to the point that you just don't do it anymore, or you fall behind and then you look kind of funny when you're reaching out to people and they respond to you and then you don't respond till like Christmas, right? So that sort of stuff, anything that happens at volume that's dealing with people can be stressful if you're actually doing the work, right? It accumulates very quickly. The other one is I found if more in the visionary space and staying aligned with my main objective and where I want to go, if it's tucked away in my phone, I can lose track of the direction I'm going in, and I could be caught up in the doing and not aligning with actually where it's going. Like now we've started having these visual things up, and we can actually see things as they're happening, and we see our numbers changing, going up or down or whatever. We have more like right up in front of our face to answer to what really happened, right? So I think there's benefit to both. You know, one in the organizational space and gathering data, and something that just can manage a greater volume than a human brain that's also juggling all these balls up in the air. But also the visionary space as well. I find that I can lose track easily if I don't have stuff in front of me reminding me of where I'm actually going, right? And maybe why I'm going there, why it's important to me, right?
Yeah, I think
staying on the path, but also accumulating data, right?
Yeah, I think that you bring up two really, really good points. Is that the main solution that this provides is scalability, right? You know, we do all this automation, we're doing all this saving time. It's going to help you scale your business, because that's when you start facing these problems, is when your business scales. And so to the other thing that you said, you know, when you start getting a lot of clients, that's when you're going to start finding that you need to put a system in place. And it becomes very easy to start getting burnt out, you know, when that happens. And so putting a system in place that allows you to handle a bit more volume, like even as simple as a Google Sheet, or a tracker, right? Setting up a tracker so that you know what tasks need to be done, that you can quickly take notes while you're in a meeting, you know, and then at the end of the day, you know, you've met 10 clients, but you understand all the points that you need to reach with each of those clients, and you don't forget it. And you just keep that open. Whether that's a physical copy of it, writing in a notebook or on a planner or on a Google Sheet, it's really the same thing. It's really about having it there. So it goes a bit into administration. But yeah, I'd say that that's probably the most important part of all this is when you're trying to scale your business, that's when these systems are going to become the most important. And it's really going to stop you from burning out from the volume of just owning a business and trying to meet with clients, trying to reach all their deadlines, right? Yeah,
I love that. I love that. Of course, gentlemen, we can talk about systems all day long, but we are at the end of our show because we do 45 minutes now. So a system I put in place to make sure we get out here on time. Gareth, thank you so much for coming today. Gareth's LinkedIn link will be in the show notes because the amazing Susan does our show notes. She does our covers, and she also turns the live YouTube channel episode into a Spotify episode words today. So one quick last tip, Gareth, do you want to give before we go?
Don't overthink it. Just really don't overthink it. If you're overthinking it, you're already making your own life harder. So don't overthink it. You don't want to have to put a system in place to stop you from overthinking.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's also why brain dumping helps, but I won't go into that whole thing. That's a system for that reason, is so you don't overthink things and you can keep track of things. I love it. So I am Sondra. I am you're get it done coach. So I help you get things done by helping you figure out the systems and the processes and using my resources and all the things. So also by brain dumping so that you can get everything out of your head because your brain is made for processing, not storing. So get it out of your head. My next quarterly review workshop is March 20th, and we'll review your systems, your resources, your SOPs, and so on and so on and so on. Definitely a special shout out to Somerville, who helps keep Peter straight, which helps keep Explorer ProTech straight, and all the things in the behind the scenes. So thank you so much, Somerville. Mr. Peter, would you take us off, please?
Awesome. I think for the general audience out there, go back in the topics and work your way towards this topic that we've discussed this evening or this morning or tonight, wherever you are in the world. And have fun with it, because at the end of the day, it all comes together. It may be a whole lot more complicated, but we break it all apart topic by topic and help it make sense, which is great. That being said, we're at the end of our show, and I'll end it off with the famous words from Christine Butter. May all your wildest